Welcome to Homework Lib.
Question comparative statements of shareholders' equity for Locke Intertechnology Corporation were reported as follows for the fiscal years ending December 31st, 2019, 2020, and 2021. Required. Infer from the statements the events and transactions that affected Locke Intertechnology Corporation's shareholders' equity and compute earnings per share as it would have appeared on the income statements for the years ended December 31st, 2019, 2020, and 2021. No potential common shares were outstanding during any of the periods shown. Enter your answers in millions rounded to 2. Summary: Locke Intertechnology Corporation's comparative statements of shareholders' equity provide key insights into changes in equity components over the fiscal years 2019 through 2021. Events influencing shareholders' equity likely include net income, dividend payments, and potential issuance or repurchase of shares. To compute earnings per share, EPS, for each year, use the formula. Income analyze reported equity changes to infer net income and verify any share adjustments affecting calculations. Ensure accuracy in rounding to 2 decimals.
Section first answer of this question.
Section second, weighted average common shares. Outstanding. This represents the average common shares outstanding over the period, having duly adjusted for any issue of new shares, stock splits, or buyback. Weighted average number of shares reflects changes in outstanding shares over the reporting period. If new shares came out, or some were retired during the year, they are added or subtracted from the count as follows, to reflect how many months each share amount was outstanding for. For example, if the firm issues new shares during the middle of the year, those new shares will be outstanding for only 6 months. Thus, those new shares will not carry the same weight in the computation as shares that were outstanding the entire year. If shares are retired during the year, they will be counted less toward the annual average. The formula takes into account how many months each share count was effective. Section 3rd. 3. Stock transactions effect on EPS. Some corporate actions may have very important consequences for the computation of the EPS. Stock splits. The number of outstanding shares is increased by the amount of a stock split while lowering the par value per share proportionately. A split is an existing share split into several shares against one share that may exist previously. In a 3-for-2 split, 2 becomes 3. A stock split does not have an effect on the company's earning power. They only increase the number of outstanding shares, decreasing EPS normally. Stock dividends. Stock dividends issue a portion of the current existing shareholders' original holdings. For example, a 10% stock dividend would give each shareholder 10% more shares. This increases the share count, but, like a stock split, doesn't affect the company's net income. Stock dividends dilute EPS by increasing the denominator shares outstanding. Issuance or retirement of shares. Issuing new shares increases the number of outstanding shares and therefore lowers EPS unless earnings grow correspondingly. On the other hand, the retirement of shares, that is, buying them back, reduces the number of outstanding shares and can potentially raise EPS if earnings do not decline. Section 4. Example of each impact in Locke Intertechnology Corporation's case. Let's see how these concepts applied to Locke Intertechnology. 2019. The company issued new shares in mid-year. We weighted the shares accordingly to find the average number outstanding over the year. EPS was calculated on these adjusted shares. 2020. A 3-for-2 stock split in August increased the share count by 50%. All shares from earlier periods are assumed to have been split since the beginning of the year. This increased the denominator, shares outstanding, but decreased EPS, despite increasing net income. 2021. A 10% stock dividend increased shares further. In addition, new shares were issued later in the year. Both actions increased the number of shares outstanding, so the weighted average shares grew substantially, and EPS fell. Section 5. Why EPS declined. Even though earnings were steady or increased, Locke Intertechnology. Even though the net income remained at an average high level throughout, the growth in outstanding shares, due to stock splits, dividends, and new issues, diluted the EPS. Dilution of EPS. The increase in shares diluted the EPS. That is, each share represented a smaller share of the company's total earnings. 6. Why EPS is important. EPS is an important measure for investors because this expresses how much money a firm is making in terms of profit on a per-share basis. As EPS rises, it often gives an indication that a firm is making more value for its shareholders. EPS forms the core component of calculations for P/E ratio, a valuation ratio which guides investors about the amount paid per dollar of earnings. Explanation. In summary, it can be said that knowing what EPS is made up of and how changing share count affects it plays a pivotal role in assessing the true financial health of a firm and how management actions really impact shareholders. In Locke Intertechnology's case, all these three stock splits, stock dividends, and issues of common shares increased its share count, and thereby lower EPS even if net income was growing or at elevated levels. Section 6. Section 7. Section 8. Section 9. Section 9. The EPS values for Locke Intertechnology Corporation over the years are 2019 EPS, $6.23, 2020 EPS, $6.28, 2021 EPS, $4.27. These calculations incorporate the effects of stock sales, stock dividends, and stock splits on the weighted average shares. The decline in EPS from 2020 to 2021 is mainly due to the increased share count from the 10% stock dividend and additional share issuance.